I just purchased the Shackmaster Power 600 switching power supply from Rigexperts. I got it through Gigaparts because they were the first ones to have them in stock, and they are able to ship them out right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is download the software so we can go ahead and set up the power supply. Here are the files from Rigexpert. Let's go ahead and download the Windows version and get that installed. Software is installed, and this version is pretty fresh, July 11th of 2024. Let's hook it up to the power supply and see if we can adjust some voltages here. Well, it's finally here. The Shackmaster 600 has arrived. Let's open up the box and see what's inside. There's the box. Not too big, relatively small. We'll check it out here. That is the Shackmaster 600 watt, 40 amp switching power supply. Check out. Alright, let's open it up and see what's in the box. Okay, let's open the box up here. We actually have a printed power supply manual. Wow, hard to believe, but very nice. And there is the power supply itself. Very nicely packed, isolated in foam. And there is a card here with a QR code that you can use to sign up to get information on the power supply. And here's the power cord, USB cable, the base stand, and feet, depending upon which orientation you want to use the power supply in. Alright, let's get this hooked up and power it up and take a look at it. Okay, so this power supply is going to be used to replace a linear power supply, which is going to be repurposed in another area. But you can see there's two Anderson 45 amp power poles, there's two USB-A's, there's two USB-C charging ports, as well as the display, which is a touch sensitive display that changes depending upon the orientation of the supply. On the back we have another power pole, maybe two power poles, 45 amp, as well as a 30 amp binding post, on-off switch, power supply connection, fans. The form factor is very small. So this is the power supply we're going to be replacing here. It takes up a lot of room, and you can see this takes up a fraction of the space in the vertical orientation, so that's going to free up a lot of space on my shelf for future expansion. So here's the power supply, just plugged it in. Again, it's pretty small, I mean incredibly small for a 40 amp switcher. So let's power it on. I guess it powers on briefly and goes into standby mode. And so what we'll do is give it the long press. Alright, it's on. So the next thing I'm going to do is hook the software up to it and just take a look and see what we have, and then I'm going to go ahead and wire it in and replace the linear power supply, and then we can go ahead and turn it on and try to run some equipment. Okay, so what I did was I hooked up a voltmeter to it, and this is with no load. It's sitting there with 13.9 volts. Not sure exactly what it would be with a load on it, but I tend to run mine a little bit lower than what these things are specified, so I'll run it probably at about 12.8 volts, so I'm going to see if I can adjust it down. Okay, so right now I'm testing the output voltage on the USB-C, no load. It's about 5.17 volts. And so next we will check the USB-A. Okay, there we are, 5 3.16 volts into the USB jack. Okay, I did a couple more highly subjective tests here. So what I did was turn the power supply on, and on a number of bands just watch the waterfall in the background with and without the antenna connected, switching the power supply on and off to see if there was any effect at all. And I did not see any switching noise, and I wouldn't expect to. And then we got an RF field strength meter here. I'm just going to turn the power supply on, and there's no effect. Again, highly subjective, but nothing obvious here. So what I did was I connected to the rear of the power supply with the USB-C control cable. Have that going in through a USB port to my laptop, and we are using the Shackmaster 600 software. We are connected, and we can see all the parameters associated with the power supply. If we go up and click on settings, a new screen opens, and you can see we can adjust the voltage, all kinds of settings here, as well as a visual display of what we're going to see on the meter, as well as the update rates. You can change the time setting here. And this software version is the Shack Power that was updated July 11th of 2024. Initially, I had a problem downloading the software. I emailed tech support, and they quickly sent me a link to the files, and it was very easy to install. So I'm going to make some settings adjustments here, and then we'll check back in a minute. Okay, so I made a couple adjustments. I adjusted my voltage to 12.8. I adjusted the time to Arizona time. I used 12-hour format. It says that it's at 12.8. And if I look at my voltmeter, pretty close. So I tend to run the voltage a little low. But anyways, I'm good with 12.8. So the software seems to work well. Pretty easy to use. No problems there. Hope that helps. Okay, so I've got a ton of stuff that my linear power supply powers. And I am going to go ahead and switch everything over here and see if we can't free up some room. Get that monster out of there and get the Rigexpert Shackmaster 600 in its place. We'll fire it up and take a look and take some readings. Okay, the Shackmaster supplied power cord is fairly short. So what I did was I have lots of these cords in stock, so I'm going to swap one over that's about twice the length and pull that off of one of my HP meters. Okay, for comparison purposes, there's the Shackmaster 600 next to my Alinco DM340, which is modified. Both kind of similar specs. This one I think is rated at 35 amps continuous, and that one's rated at 40, the Shackmaster. So the next thing I'm going to do is toss them on the scale so you can get an idea of the weight difference. Okay, there it is. There's the Alinco on the scale, and it comes in at a whopping 21 pounds. Personally, a big fan of linear power supplies, but they're heavy. There's the Shackmaster. Comes in at a whopping 3 pounds. An 18-pound difference. Okay, the Shackmaster is wired in, and everything here is running off of that. So it seemed to work out pretty well. The only issue I had was one with the length of the power cord, and other than that, it seems to be working real well. Very happy with the purchase. Highly recommended.